It's been almost 2 years since Zach Barnes disappeared, and in that time his family has endured unimaginable pain, anguish and heartache.
Last year it was more about how we're feeling, how we're coping, how do we just get through each day. It was very much living in a cloud, a fog.
But for Zach's mum, Karen Goodall, one thing has always been clear, and that's her determination to find her son.
Hard reality is hitting home. Zach's not here. Zach hasn't been sighted in this time. There's no bank activity.
Zach was last seen on the evening of Sunday the 13th of November 2016, getting out of a friend's car near the Houseman Drive and Trip Close intersection at Thornton. There's been searches of bushland by both police and Ms Goodall, along with a constant social media campaign. While the police investigation into Zach's disappearance is still very much ongoing, Zach's mum is also searching for answers, which she hopes may come through a coronial inquest. Helping her achieve that, her work colleagues who are helping raise $100,000 for legal fees.
We're prepared to do whatever we have to in order to get Karen the resources that she needs to get her the answers that anyone would want under those circumstances.
When I heard that was going to happen, I sat in the car for 10 minutes crying, pulled myself together, to think, I can't believe that they would do this for me.
In the meantime, Zach's mum remains focused on one thing.
I need to find him, and I need to do everything in my power to do that.
Zach was last seen wearing a faded blue singlet, dark blue board shorts and work boots. One distinguishing feature, his tattoo of a VB beer logo on his right calf. Anyone who has information on Zach's disappearance is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
For anybody unsure whether coal was here to stay, Minister Don Harwin offered this promising outlook.
The coal industry will still have an important part to play in the generation of power in New South Wales for some time to come.
Even as we gradually transition away from burning it toward renewables.
Securing an integration of climate and energy policy at COAG Energy Council is the most important thing we can do.
More than 500 people are attending the Sellout Conference this year.
It's an important event for the mining industry, particularly for the Hunter mining industry.
Most agree technology continues to reshape the workforce, improving safety, as always, the priority.
For example, automation generally involves taking workers out of potentially harmful environments and putting them to work somewhere where they are at less risk.
Work, government and industry both say is never complete.
Making sure that our people go home safely at night is always a very big focus for our sector.
One death or one serious injury is one too many.
Sam Burbury, NBN News.
Nursing a noticeably sore ankle, but typically unfazed.
It's all right. It's pretty sore, but once you get in a game sort of situation, you sort of tend to forget about it. So that's what's getting me through at the moment.
The NRL's coolest customer limped through his first training session for 6 weeks, but will be named to take on the Warriors. Just where he'll play is uncertain. Mitchell Pearce missed training with a bad cork, Connor Watson remains out with a groin problem, and Brock Lamb is far from certain to come back into the squad. Will the halves' headache force Nathan Brown to shift his number one?
Look, I'm hoping that Pearcey plays, obviously, and it'd be good if he does, but if I get thrown in the halves or whatever, then I don't really mind.
He could play any numbers of positions, I believe. I think he showed in the Origin when he played in the forwards how good. He's just a very good player. But I think we brought Caelan here to be our fullback, and that's the reason why he came to the club.
Brown will pick Pearce for Friday night's match, but it'll be a case of wait and see.
Hopefully Mitchell's available to play, and we generally are a far better footy team when he does play.
Wherever Ponga plays and whatever hype that brings, the 20-year-old sure doesn't mind.
Just don't really pay attention to it, really. Pretty easy, yeah.
Just ignore it.
No, just ignore it, yeah. I just ignore this.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News. As the sun sets on another busy day, Sue Moody and Sonia Booth are just getting started. This pair of rugby league lovers are the heartbeat of West Junior Rugby League, Newcastle's biggest club. Sue has spent a decade here at these fields. Each week during the season, she's here a lot.
I think we worked it out, it's roughly about 20 hours probably that we're on ground for. Everyone sort of says, oh, you get to, September comes and you get a break. We don't, we just prepare for next year. Yeah, February through to May is chaos. I think my role's probably up to about 35 hours a week by then with phone calls, etc.
Women like Sue and Sonia do everything from restocking the canteen to registrations and managing teams.
It's a really heavy load from November through to probably May, making sure all the teams, we have the right numbers for each team. Sometimes you're sitting there trying to think, have I got enough for the number of teams that we want, and just trying to make sure that we've got an even number of players and not too many but not too few as well.
Further up the coast, Jane Keegan puts in the hours as Registrar and Secretary of the Port Macquarie Sharks. For this footy mum, her rugby league workload is the equivalent of a full-time job.
I think that someone nominated me and that I got selected, so it's exciting. There's heaps of people that do what I do, or probably do more than what I do.
They don't do it for the praise, but they're getting it anyway, nominated by their peers for their contribution to rugby league. They'll now have their names printed on the Knights' jerseys for this Friday night's match.
It's nice that some people see it, because sometimes you think that the 6 a.m. starts in the dark on a Saturday don't get noticed, but our senior club recognised us, and we're really grateful for that.
A lot of people don't see the work that certain people put in behind the scenes, and there's a lot of people that go to a lot of trouble to get a competition up and running. And I think any acknowledgement is deserved.
I loved Sissicon. The crowd was great. The place is beautiful, though. It was easy to be relaxed up there with this view, so I really love it.
He's in good order. He had a short spell off his Brisbane campaign and he'll resume Saturday week, and I think he's in for a good spring.
It's only a small school, but today Nillo infants received a big visit from Blues players Daniel Fallons and Peter Neville.
I loved watching cricket on the TV, so I'll go and pester my next door neighbour to come and play cricket with me out the front.
It's nice to do these things, get out of Sydney for a bit and come to these schools and talk to the kids and listen to their questions.
Former chairman of Cricket New South Wales, John Warne, would always say that it's Cricket New South Wales, it's not Cricket Sydney. And it's a great opportunity for us to, as I said, get out and see some country New South Wales.
Neville knows visits like these are vital to help restore the game's image following the ball tampering scandal.
I think the biggest thing for me was it really showed how much the cricket public do care about the game in this country.
In the absence of the suspended Steve Smith, Neville has been named Blues captain. Returning to the Australian team for the first time since late 2016 is still his ultimate goal.
Absolutely, I'd love to get back there, but that comes through, representing New South Wales well and some success in that format.
21-year-old Fallons has more modest goals as he returns to the Sixers in the Big Bash after a season in Melbourne.
I think it's great to be playing for my home team, and I was an inaugural member of the Sydney Sixers 7 years ago, whatever it was, so it's great to be playing for a team that I supported myself.
Both players believe it's only a matter of time before the Hunters' own Jason Sanger becomes a regular in the New South Wales lineup.
Sanger's coming on really well. Every week he's getting better and better, becoming one of the harder blokes to bowl to in the squad. He's got such nice wrists and lovely hands when he's batting.
Officers arrived at this Taree house last night to arrest a teenage boy. This is what unfolded. In this video filmed by residents at the Marjorie Street home, officers can be seen trying to restrain the 14-year-old who they say had breached bail. During the arrest, it's alleged the boy's aunt assaulted one of the officers with a metal curtain rod. Pepper spray was used on the woman. It was at this time a dog bit the same senior constable on the legs. When it wouldn't let go, the animal was shot by another officer. 2 women and 3 children, the youngest 8 years old, were in the house last night. They say they're still in shock. This 16-year-old claims the family dog was just trying to protect his owner.
I grabbed him by the throat, trying to pull him back, and then they shot him in the head when my head was clearly right next to his, and they had no hesitation to move.
If you're going to use pepper spray on a human, why can't you do it on a dog? He's certainly going to step back if he's, gets a taste of the pepper spray. There was no reason for him to pull that gun out.
The 14-year-old boy has since been charged with breach of bail and resisting arrest. A 36-year-old woman was also charged with resisting arrest as well as assaulting police. The dog is being treated by a vet. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Tiffany Pandell admits to assaulting Carolyn Holland, but what the 23-year-old denies is stealing her phone. On the opening day of her trial, Newcastle Court heard how in August 2016, Mrs. Holland's late husband, former Test cricketer Robert Holland, approached Pandell and her then boyfriend Benjamin Gibbs, asking them not to ride their dirt bikes on a Wobber Oval. The jury heard Mrs. Holland felt a little bit concerned and she started filming on her mobile phone. That's when Pandell knocked the 70-year-old to the ground using her dirt bike before kicking her in the head and ribs and allegedly taking off with her iPhone. The prosecution claims when police went to Pandell's house later that night, officers found a smouldering fire in the backyard, and in the embers were the remnants of 2 mobile phones, an Apple and a Samsung. Pandell has pleaded not guilty to aggravated robbery and inflicting actual bodily harm, but guilty to the charge of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Her barrister Terry Golding today reminded the jury that the only issue in this trial is whether or not you're satisfied that the accused took the phone of Mrs. Holland. The trial is expected to run for around 4 days. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Abdullah Kaiser is battered and bruised. The Pakistani student was assaulted and robbed at the Callaghan campus on Saturday night. The 21-year-old says he was driving to the Ockmuty Library to complete an assignment when a large group blocked his vehicle.
The lady came out, came to the passenger seat. She opened the door. She didn't say anything, and I was stopping her. Like, you cannot enter the property or the car.
The woman stole his mobile phone while a man punched him in the face with knuckle dusters. Mr. Kaiser's nose was broken and he needs surgery. Now he's too scared to return to the campus. He says he was also racially abused, but he doesn't believe that was the reason for the attack.
I was in the car. How could they know it was a brown person in the car?
Mr. Kaiser wants a heavier security presence across the campus.
More lights should be on the roads, because over there it was dark. No one was there.
The university says the safety of its staff and students is its #1 priority, adding that it's looking to increase security patrols on campus.
These incidents are incredibly rare, and that's the important message that we deliver here, but one is too many.
The uni is working to install additional lighting along paths and roads. Police are now reviewing CCTV.
I will be careful, extremely careful.
Samantha Long, NBN News.
I saw it firsthand how involved he was in the community,
and yeah, I think it's a fitting reward for Dad.
I think that my mentality through competition and wanting to win has helped me want to beat this.
Blending beer and coffee may not sound enticing. The resulting brew, however, goes down a treat.
Quite delicious, surprisingly delicious actually.
Thirsty Merkel Draft, named after Germany's leader, was developed over several months for the upcoming Maitland Aroma Coffee and Chocolate Festival.
There were 25 or 30 different samples that were happening there, but believe me, we persevered.
We didn't want the coffee to overpower the beer and conversely the other way.
Hunter Beer Company eventually ended up combining its golden ale with an Ethiopian cold brew from Josie Coffee. The result?
It's a light, approachable beer that's easy drinking and refreshing, and the coffee flavour just goes on and on and on.
Inquisitive drinkers hoping for a sample be warned. The brew is a limited edition, meaning once the kegs run dry, you miss out.
I think it's going to have appeal to people who are into their beer. I think it's going to have appeal to people who are into their coffee. Foodies, I think, can step onto that plate as well.
The festival gets underway on Saturday morning.
It brings a lot of people together. It's really nice, and it's something for people to do in winter.
Sam Burbury, NBN News.
He made his debut for the Cowboys against the Knights in 2003. 16 seasons later, Lillyman will end his career in red and blue.
It's been a bit of a battle this year, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to come over and play for this great club and meet so many great people. So, there's certainly no regrets there.
The 34-year-old was a big part of the dominant Maroons side of the past decade. He says a lot of the credit for his success should go to his family.
They've been there every step of the way. Live 5 hours away, and I can't remember in the 5 years or so I spent in the Cowboys, I can't remember too many games they missed.
As Lillyman prepares to hang up the boots, JJ Felice is fighting for his future. The 22-year-old moved to the Knights from the Tigers for a chance to play regular first grade. He made his debut against his old club last Friday.
Didn't get much time, but in saying that, I felt like my carries were decent. Could have fixed a bit up in defence, but overall I was pretty happy with the performance, and I was happy just to get the chance to play.
Felice admits he got complacent at the Tigers and is now hoping to be one of the young players who helps to resurrect the Knights.
I think getting out of my comfort zone, and it sort of made me work a bit harder, and you can see the boys out there, everyone's working hard, everyone's doing their extras and all that sort of thing, and the competition that's here too, that's just going to only make the culture and the team better.
Coming face to face with their heroes and playing side by side. This was a day rugby's next generation will never forget, and one the Wallabies might not either.
Personally, pretty enjoyable for me. I was lucky enough to coach the Maitland team, and we were just kicking the ball around, and it just reminded me of when I was younger and how much it meant to me when I had plays from the Western Force when I was in Perth growing up.
Juniors from across the Hunter taught a few tricks by some of the world's best players. The perfect way for them to relax as the Bledisloe approaches.
It's always good to kick the ball around and just have a bit of fun and play a bit of touch and stuff like that. 'Cause it does get your head off just footy, and when you're always on, it's always good to get away.
He made a name for himself in the NRL with the Bulldogs. Now rugby convert Curtis Rona wants to become a mainstay for the Wallabies with a vacancy at outside centre.
All I can do is just train hard and make sure I get all my details and know my roles, and then I think the rest will look after itself.
Rona played the first of his 3 caps in last year's Bledisloe opener. He's hoping history repeats, just not the result.
And we come up here last year and we trained here, so it was a bit of deja vu.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Following an intensive training camp in Spain, the Jets flew direct to the Gold Coast to prepare for tonight's game.
First of all, the Spain trip was very worthwhile, but there's a cost in that. There's a fair amount of travel involved in coming back especially, but the boys have had 3 days break.
Newcastle has never progressed past the round of 32, but coach Ernie Merrick is determined to aim even higher.
It's a piece of silverware we'd be really keen to win. So this is stage one, and it's very important we do well.
The Jets will field their strongest possible squad tonight, but after losing Jack Duncan to a Saudi Arabian side, Newcastle is now searching for 2 new attacking weapons and a keeper.
We've got virtually everyone signed from the grand final, so we're pretty keen to build our squad. So we'll take our time and get the right players to play up front for us.
Their opponents, the Knights, come into the clash as the undefeated premiers of their local competition and also beat Queensland NPL side Gold Coast United to reach this stage.
They've got a few players that used to play with Brisbane Roar, development through the youth programmes, and there's no doubt they've got a couple of A-League players. So it'll be a tough game, but a game that we're expected to win and we certainly intend to.
The game kicks off at Seabus Stadium at 7:30.
Hayley and I had been talking sort of at Christmas over the summer about the possibility of just doing a bit of sailing with the squad back in Australia, and thought that, you know, if we enjoy the boat and enjoy a bit of sailing, we might do a few events in Europe this year.
It's been really good. We haven't trained very much, so every day when we go out, it's a pretty massive breakthrough, and we'll often come in scratching our heads with, you know, reassessing things.
It's the art prize you either like or loathe. The Bald Archie features portraits with a difference, political commentary, Australian icons and sporting royalty, or not.
The Archibald Prize was being particularly pompous at the time, so I thought, let's get them.
It's the only art prize in the world judged by a cockatoo.
People didn't get it until one Sydney journalist wrote and said it takes 11 galahs to judge the Archibald Prize, but 1 cockatoo to judge the Bald Archie.
The exhibition is now in Newcastle for the first time. Fittingly, this year's winner, as judged by Maud the Cockatoo, was Maitland artist James Brennan for his portrait within a portrait within a portrait.
Bit of a surprise, always, you know, you never know, you hope for the best.
The overwhelming theme of the 2018 entry is the same-sex marriage vote.
It makes people think. It's satire. It's one of the few exhibitions where it's a platform for satire.
Satire at its outrageous best. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
They've suffered the heartbreaking loss of their daughter, but today a small win for the parents of Carly McBride. Today, Sale Newson, the man accused of murdering their daughter, was committed to stand trial. The case against the 41-year-old is extensive, 128,000 pages in total.
Knowing the complications of the case and the size of it is incredible. So really, we think it's moved quite well, quite quickly.
While there's no evidence linking Newson to the murder nor any eyewitnesses, court documents detail how the accused laid many false trails with the intention of misleading the police and diverting the attention from himself. The mother of two was last seen on September 30, 2014 in Muswellbrook. It's alleged shortly after leaving her former partner's home at around 1:30 that afternoon, Ms McBride was intercepted by Newson, who allegedly murdered her between 2 and 5 p.m. Her body was found almost 50 kilometres away on the side of Bunnan Road at Owens Gap nearly 2 years later. The prosecution claims there was a gross and immediate public overreaction by the accused, which included social media appeals, missing person posters, and an offer of reward of $10,000. A second man, James Caneen, was also charged with Ms McBride's murder, but today that charge was dropped, downgraded to accessory after the fact to murder. It's alleged Caneen helped dispose of Ms McBride's body. Newson will appear before Sydney Supreme Court on September 7, where he'll formally enter his plea. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Look closely and you can see what confronted emergency services at around 2:45 this morning. 2 boats ablaze, a narrow jetty, the only access point for firefighters.
The boats were large size, approximately 35 to 50 feet, both of them. They were both extensively involved in fire.
3 vessels were destroyed before the fire was brought under control. 2 later sank.
We're very fortunate that the conditions were not windier.
It doesn't take long for them to catch, and once they go, as you can see with that aluminium boat over there, it's melted.
2 were fishing boats, the other was used for parasailing. Unaffected vessels are now operating from the smaller public wharf, while the nearby beach has been closed pending a clean-up. Police are searching for suspects.
If that had happened during the day with 600 or 700 people on the dock, it could have been a disaster.
Detectives have spoken to witnesses and are now reviewing CCTV footage, looking for anything that may help identify those responsible.
It's still a lovely day in Nelson Bay, so I'm sure we'll survive it.
Sam Burbury, NBN News.
Kylie Speld has spent almost half her life living a nightmare.
I'm a sister of a missing person. And the day she went missing was the day she took my heart with her.
Kylie's sister is Janine Vaughan, and that day was the 7th of December 2001.
Constantly thinking about it, you know, from the time I open my eyes to the time I close my eyes. I'm talking to people every day.
Janine, who grew up in Muswellbrook, disappeared from Bathurst and was last seen getting into the front passenger seat of a bright red sedan, similar to a Mitsubishi Magna or Toyota Camry on Keppel Street. What happened to her after that is a mystery. A coroner later determined she'd been murdered. Her body has never been found.
Janine needs to be brought home. The thought of her lying out there somewhere, like that just doesn't sit with me at all. And knowing what she possibly has gone through prior to her being in that place, wherever she is, that haunts me.
There's been searches, 2 police strike forces, an inquest, even a Police Integrity Commission hearing, yet still no answers. But Ms Speld remains as determined as ever to find her sister.
Because I love her. I love her so much and I miss her so much. My whole family misses her and her friends, and she just doesn't deserve this. And I'll never give up.
Anyone who has information on Janine's disappearance is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
First came the official announcement. Then a message to the rest of the world.
I've got no doubt that Newcastle is ready, like the rest of New South Wales and Australia, to host this event.
The feedback we received from the athletes is they wanted world-class village, they wanted facilities that are capable of hosting great crowds, and what we've got in Newcastle is those exact opportunities.
The New South Wales government has selected the Hunter as its preferred host for the 2021 Women's Rugby World Cup, throwing $5 million behind the bid, and Newcastle and Maitland say they're ready.
When they take events to Newcastle and put the money into hosting events in Newcastle and the Hunter, we deliver time and time again.
I think the partnership between the centres is the future of major events in the Hunter, and it's just fantastic to be a part of this one.
Under the proposal, the tournament's pool games would be shared between Maitland Sports Ground and Newcastle's number 2. Both would receive further upgrades, with the finals played at McDonald Jones Stadium.
We've got a chance to put 40,000 people in there, which would break the world record for a women's rugby game, and that's our ambition.
The teams would take over the Hunter Valley Crown Plaza, creating an athletes' village.
Previously been in sort of university dorm type accommodation, so to be able to take this experience to that next level, we think is a really important part of our bid.
Officials are confident in the bid. The tournament has never been staged in the Southern Hemisphere, but it faces competition. New Zealand is expected to announce its own campaign. This bid is part of the state government's 10 World Cups in 10 years plan. And after being endorsed for this event, Newcastle City Council is now preparing to go all out in order to play some role in the others, including the men's rugby, the netball and the FIFA Women's World Cups.
Of course, I've already put a pitch for a number of other options because part of their mandate is also to take events to the regions. So there is lots of opportunity and we just need to go out and grab it.
World Rugby is expected to announce the host in November. Samuel Jordan, NBN News. The world's fastest man being linked to the A-League may have been a bolt from the blue, but we waited weeks for this confirmation.
Thanks to everybody at the Central Coast Mariners for giving me this opportunity to play professional football. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to come here and do my best. Watch out, I'm on the way. Remember, I don't think limits.
Usain Bolt will touch down in Tuggerah in 10 days. The Mariners say he'll be just another player, but in the months since his dialogue down under first came to light, the club has already made concessions to help him achieve his dream. His trial period has now changed from 6 weeks to indefinite.
This is about training and developing Usain, so we're all in this together.
And it's no longer just the coach, Premiership winner Mike Mulvey, who'll make the final decision.
It's not that it's going to be one person making the decision, yes or no. It's a collaborative effort, and if he's at the level, then fantastic.
Pre-season friendlies are on the radar.
We would like to hope that he does get the boots on and get out there, but we're still working through those processes as we speak.
As the Mariners look to get their money's worth, they're paying the 31-year-old what's understood to be a hefty fee, but believe every cent will be worth it.
You know that we are a small club. You know that we need to grow, and if this is one of the opportunities for the Central Coast Mariners to significantly grow for the long term, then that's an opportunity that I'm sure nobody can deny us. We've been inundated with sponsor calls this morning. That long-term effect is something that we've really just got to be mindful of.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
I always dreamed about it. I've obviously played for a long time, and I watched probably 2003 World Cup with the men's was something that I remember quite vividly. To play in a World Cup in Australia is going to be massive.
Playing their first competitive match since the A-League Grand Final, the Jets were feeling the effects of a taxing pre-season trip to Spain, and the Gold Coast Knights defied their third-tier ranking. Nick Panetta outclassed Newcastle's defence but couldn't beat Glenn Moss. That sparked the visitors into action. Jason Hoffman went close. From the corner, Nikolai Topor-Stanley put the Jets in front. Costa Petrados almost made the most of a rare start. But the Knights refused to be intimidated. Dimi Petrados forced a solid save out of Josh Langdon just before the break. The home side started well in the second half, with Moss called into action again, as the Knights searched for an equaliser. Substitutes Joey Champness and Angus Thurgate created a late chance, as Newcastle finally advanced to the round of 16. Morgan thought he'd played his last game in green on the main court last Saturday as Newcastle hammered Maitland to finish in top spot. But tomorrow night the Hunters will play a free exhibition against Colorado Springs, a perfect warm-up for the finals in Sydney on August 18 and 19.
We'll come out, prepare like a normal game and see what happens.
In a blow, their best player against the Mustangs, Ryan Beastie, returns to college in the US tomorrow.
He's very disappointed, and we all are. He was unbelievable on the weekend. We knew a little while ago that we didn't have him for the final, so we prepare accordingly.
At the other end of his career, Morgan says the time is right to step aside.
There's too many other obligations going on, and not getting any younger either, so it's physically harder. There's too many other guys now that are ready to go, so it's their time to have a shot.
During his time with the Hunters, Newcastle has finished first twice, but never won the decider, setting up a potential dream finish. For a player who enjoyed a stint in the NBL with the Hunter Pirates, the ultimate goal is to see the region return to the national stage.
Hopefully one day that happens again. It's nice to have our team that the little kids can aspire to, but I think the professional leagues and the next level is something that we really need here.
Jaden Penno-Thompson's disappearance is quite simply a mystery. Just what happened to the 22-year-old here on a lonely road in outback Queensland has police baffled and left his mother heartbroken.
I've come to accept that he may not be with us much longer or any longer, and I just want to still bring him home, find him and bring him home. He deserves to come back.
This is the last vision of Jaden alive, filmed on security cameras with a friend at a roadhouse on the Flinders Highway in the early hours of December 31 last year. The 22-year-old has not been seen since.
Just a lot of things just don't add up. Nothing makes sense.
Police have been told Jaden fled into bushland following an argument with a friend.
That's just not Jaden to do something like that, especially when he's sick. And to run off into the bush, they would have found something.
He wasn't reported missing until 4 days later. A search was then launched. It involved 20 police, more than 50 SES and RFS volunteers, and covered 85 square kilometres. Even Jaden's mother travelled to the remote town to help.
It's broken me, but I'm still going. I won't stop.
Rachel Penno hopes Missing Persons Week will prompt those who may know something to come forward.
Doesn't matter how small the information is, how tiny, any little bit can help.
She has one wish.
I just want to find my baby and bring him home.
Anyone who has information on Jaden's disappearance is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
I'm determined that we're not going to sell. I would like the government to just take that lease away from them. They don't need that little 7-year lease.
It was unprecedented. The Allies' assault at Amiens in northern France 100 years ago sent shockwaves through the German ranks.
The German commander at the time, General Ludendorff, made the comment that it's the blackest day in the history of the war.
Australia played a crucial role, our troops leading the charge.
The two main countries that put the strike force in were the Australians and the Canadians.
Many involved were from the Hunter. Historians today commemorated their sacrifice during a centenary service at Christchurch Cathedral.
We have the 35th Battalion, which is a Newcastle Battalion, the 34th, which is a Maitland Battalion. We have the 2nd and the 13th, all local people that would have gone over and fought for freedom.
Hundreds of locals, sadly, never came home. Their deaths a tragic reminder there are no real winners in war.
These things need to be remembered, not just for the sake of remembering, but also remember the lessons learnt, that we don't see a repeat of such horrendous things.
Sam Burberry, NBN News. Unsure why everybody was fussing over them, these adorable youngsters today officially became Awabakal community members during a welcoming ceremony. Elders marked each with ochre, some proved a handful. All were then given a possum skin bracelet, both reminders that generation after generation has come before them.
Our young babies are the youngest children of the longest living culture in the world, so we're really proud of that.
A culture more and more Indigenous families are fully embracing.
I think we had 15 the first year, and now we've got 45 this year. Babies and parents come from all over New South Wales.
As much as today was about nurturing the next generation, there was another reason to celebrate: National Aboriginal Children's Day turning 30. Sam Burbury, NBN News.
Considering he was moving like this just last week, few were confident Mitchell Pearce would play in New Zealand. But he's shaken off the knock and survived training today, getting the all clear to bring up game 250, to the delight of his biggest fan.
I look at him as a player who absolutely prepares and commits himself week in, week out. He gives 100% every game, and he wears his heart on his sleeve.
It's fair to say his teammates are pretty happy as well.
Mitchell Pearce has been so influential to our season so far. You only have to look at the struggles that we had mid-year without him, so he's an important part of our team.
Kalen Ponga has also been cleared to play. It's another crucial inclusion. The Knights have won just once in their past 12 outings across the ditch.
It's going to be a tough ask for us, but I'd like to think if we can perform how we did in that second half against the Tigers, for 80 minutes, I suppose everyone wants to see us putting 80 minutes performance together. If we can do that, I'm certainly confident we can go over there and do a job.
Meanwhile, Christian Wolf has dismissed reports he's been recruited to replace Mick Potter as assistant coach. Wolf is currently in charge of the Tongan national team and Queensland Cup side Townsville.
Southie finished 24 points behind Premiers Warners Bay, but the Wolves don't believe they'll be overwhelmed on Sunday.
To be honest, I don't know too much about Warners Bay. We played them at State Cup and that's pretty much all I've seen of them. They've got some quality players, but I think our ground should maybe level that out a little bit.
Gemma Simon only played her first full game 2 weeks ago, 9 months after knee surgery. She's determined to prove South Wallsend's finals appearance is no fluke.
There's a lot of volunteers who have done a lot of work over a number of years, and I think it's just all fallen into place now, and hopefully we give it a good crack over the next 2 weeks.
A handful of the Merewether squad was in enemy territory today, ahead of the clash with New Lambton on Saturday. The Eagles haven't beaten Merewether in their debut WPL season.
I think we'll get them. We've drawn 2 and beat them the last time we were here, so I think we've got what it takes.
I think the girls are really ready for this game. We've got a bit of a mental edge, so if they carry that on, particularly how we played last time, I think we're going to have a good run.
And finally, in the FFA Cup's round of 16, it's been announced Broadmeadow will host Bentley at Magic Park on August 21, while the Jets will face City at Melbourne's Amy Park on August 29. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Oh, I think the camaraderie you attain with a lot of people, and you meet a lot of people you wouldn't meet without that. I'm looking forward to be able to play with the Bulls now. It's running the game, you don't play too much, you just go and watch it and organise it.